Well, hello there,
This is Sebas Ren,
and this is Darth Walt,
and we're your hosts for a
father and son Star Wars talk.
Yeah, let's do this!
Today we're going to review and discuss the last episode of
Star Wars Rebels!
The name of the episode was
Ghost of Geonosis! We were so looking forward to this episode
for two reasons,
because it's the start of the second half of the third season.
And because it was a double episode.
Yes, more Star Wars in a single day!
So before discussing the details, let's do a quick recap of what happened in this episode. But before that, we should warn our viewers about
Spoilers! Spoiler alert!
With that being said, let's do our recap.
Okay, in this episode, the rebels went to a secret mission to Geonosis to rescue Saw Gerrera,
who apparently went there earlier with his own team, but failed to report back to Bail Organa.
Yes, he was looking for answers on what happened to the planet.
The Empire had wiped out the entire population,
and Saw wanted to find out why.
During their rescue, they discovered Click-Clack,
a Geonosian who was a survivor and provided many answers they were looking for.
But since he or she didn't speak her language,
he tried to communicate with the gestures and drawing on the sand.
And the rebels tried to figure out what Click-Clack meant.
He was also trying to protect the last egg. And at the beginning, the rebels didn't agree on what to do with them. The Empire comes and the big fight started.
In order to escape the planet safely.
They also found canisters with gas, but they lost them during their escape.
And Click-Clack was set free.
And allowed to stay deep in Geonosis with the egg.
Now, let's move on to the analysis of this episode. This episode is full of connections to other Star Wars productions. Can you name them?
First, the Clone Wars. Rex and Saw Gerrera originally met during the Clone Wars, and they recognize each other.
That is true. Saw Gerrera appears in the 5th season of Star Wars The Clone Wars. First, in the episode A War on Two Fronts, and then Frontrunners, The Soft War, and Tipping Points, all of them part of a 4-episode story arc that ended with the death of Saw's sister, Stella Gerrera, creating his first major scar in his soul, which will shape his personality in the future. What would be the next connection?
Rogue One! Saw Gerrera raised Jyn Erso, and we saw him later in Planet Jedha.
By then, he was already an extremist, so it pictures us the end state of Saw, and this episode shows us a transition to this extremism. What's the next connection?
Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. The last battle happened in the planet of Geonosis.
That is known as the first Battle of Geonosis, and almost at the end of this movie, one of the Geonosians hands over something very important to Count Dooku.
The plans for the Death Star.
Correct.
If that one was the first battle of Geonosis, what was the second one?
The second Battle of Geonosis happens during the Clone Wars, and we saw this in Season 2 of the Clone Wars, Episode 5, landing at Point Rain, where Anakin, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Ki-Adi-Mundi led a landing party to destroy a droid factory on Geonosis.
So even more connections to the Clone Wars.
And if we consider that Saw and the rebels were investigating a facility that is contributing to the construction of the first Death Star, then this episode is also connected to
Rogue One again, and Episode 4, A New Hope.
By extension, yes. Now, in Star Wars Rebels, we have seen Geonosis before.
Oh yeah, I remember when Zeb and Callus landed on one of the moons of Geonosis and had to work together to escape.
That was Season 2, Episode 15, The Honorable Ones. When the crew approached Geonosis, they noticed remains of something big that must have been built there, but they didn't know what it was yet. And of course we do.
They were starting the construction of the Death Star. That could have been the reason why the Empire wiped out the planet.
To ensure there were no witnesses left.
Except Click-Clack, the Geonosian.
Ironic that it was the Geonosians who created the first design of the Death Star. They shared it with Dooku, who gave it to Palpatine, and then the Empire started to work in their planet and eventually killed their original allies.
They must have felt betrayed, and all they have left is now Click-Clack and the egg.
And it wasn't any ordinary egg,
It was a queen egg.
which means another connection to the Clone Wars, specifically Season 2, Episode 7, Legacy of Terror, where we saw the Geonosian Queen Karina the Great.
The Great Ugliness.
Let's talk about Saw Gerrera now. This episode shows us how Saw has started to transform over the years. From the first time we saw him as a freedom warrior in his own planet against the Separatists, to a more interplanetary rebel against the Empire.
He looks older and doesn't have hair anymore.
Almost 19 years have passed between the years of the Clone Wars, which happened before Episode 3. And in Rogue One we see two Saws, the older one who had hair and talks with Chin as a grown-up, and the younger Saw who appeared as flashbacks. The younger one didn't have hair, so the Saw we see in this episode is closer to this flashback Saw.
He sounded very similar to the one in the movie.
And that is because we are hearing the same actor who played this role, Forrest Whitaker.
Saw was also a bit of a bully.
A bit?
Well, more than a bit, a lot.
And that's part of his transition from freedom fighter to rebel extremist. His fanatism makes him use whatever methods he has at his disposition in order to achieve what he wants.
He was going to kill the last egg, and there was a queen egg. He didn't seem to care.
And the other rebels explain that at the end of the episode. There will be some rebels who don't share the same values.
I felt sorry for the Geonosian and his egg.
Me too. And that's one of the nice surprises about this episode. Remember the Geonosians in episode 2?
Oh yes, there were like thousands.
And many of them were killed during the battle.
Anakin kills a bunch of them with his lightsaber when he and Padme enter the caves.
And did we feel sorry for any of those Geonosians?
Not much,
The question is why? Why not them?
because they were bad guys back then.
2. From a certain point of view. A Republic's point of view.
The Geonosians were separatists.
Yes, and the Republic turned into the Empire later.
So, does that turn the separatists into good guys?
That's the fine line. It is not as simple as it looks. There are two good things that are happening in parallel here, and are key lessons. First, the Geonosians were not necessarily bad guys. They were just in the opposite side of the Jedi during the Clone Wars. They were fighting for what they believed was right. The Republic was not working for them.
And what was the second thing?
The second thing is that in this episode, we can see Geonosians as sentient beings. Before that, they were portrayed as disgusting insects. Who cares if someone kills an insect, right?
Nobody.
But when we see this giant insect feeling scared, protecting an egg with his life, trying to communicate.
He looks more human.
Exactly. And this can tell us a lot about our own stereotypes that we have in our minds. To care only if someone is similar to us. If someone is too different, it becomes more difficult to relate to that one. And that's a key lesson in this episode.
Lesson learned.
And this brings us to the end of this review. Let's ask our audience, what do you think about this episode? Which other connections did you find? Did Saw Gerrera meet your expectations? Did this episode change the way you look at Geonosians? Let us know in the comments, and if you like this father and son Star Wars talk, show us your support by
Like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel.
These were Darth Walt
And Sebas Ren.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you again.